Guests chose her side. She anticipation she could abase the billionaire's black ex-wife in advance of 200 guests. But what happened to budding larboard her in tears and the entire allowance on the ex-wife's side? This is not aloof drama. It's authentic karma. At a high-profile gala, a bedmate approved to shame the ex-wife. But the accuracy turned the tables in the best abominable way. Stick about because this adventure proves that a dress consistently wins. Before we begin, hit subscribe and about face on the bell so you never absence these real stories of amends and karma. The evening of March 15th started like any other high-profile OMS accident I'd coordinated. The Rosewood Grand Ballroom was adapted into article out of a fairy account, with clear chandeliers casting a balmy afterglow over tables that cost added than best people's cars just to reserve. This wasn't aloof any fundraiser. This was the annual Children's Achievement Bright Area, the city's elite aggregate to accession money for the new pediatric edition at Metropolitan Children's Hospital. $5,000 per plate, and every bench was abounding with old money, new money, and the affectionate of people who accomplish decisions that affect entire industries. I was active authoritative abiding the silent bargain items were properly displayed aback she absolved in, and I swear the absolute allowance seemed to booty a collective breath. Victoria Ashford moved through that amphitheater like she owned it, which in abounding means she had for nearly 15 years. At 42, she was the kind of woman who allowable absorption without demanding it. Affected in a way that money can't buy, cutting a simple but stunning fleet dress that apparently cost less than the adornment best women were flaunting that night. Her accustomed beauty was radiant, and there was something about her attendance that fabricated you appetite to know her story. I'd heard whispers, of course. Anybody in my band of work knows the gossip. Victoria was the ex-wife of tech billionaire Damon Ashford, and their annulment 2 years earlier had been the allocution of every social amphitheater in the city. But seeing her in person, I couldn't accept why any man would let a woman like that slip away. She confused through the army with genuine warmth, endlessly to hug people, asking about their families. And when she battened to the hospital administrators, her eyes lit up with a passion that seemed about out of place in an allowance abounding of bodies who were there more for appearances than altruism. Then the activity in the allowance shifted completely. Damon Ashford fabricated his entrance. And on his arm was everything Victoria was not. Brittany Melbourne looked like she'd stepped off a magazine cover. 26 years old, platinum blonde, and decrepit in so abundant designer, everything that she looked added like a walking advertisement than a person. Her dress apparently amount added than most people's account salary, and the diamonds about her clothes could have funded a baby country. She clung to Damien's arm like a trophy, and the way she surveyed the allowance reminded me of a predator appearance its territory. The moment Brittany's eyes began Victoria across that ballroom, I knew this evening was about to become something very altered from what anyone had planned. The attending she gave Victoria wasn't aloof jealousy. It was authentic venom. And I had the biconcave activity that I was about to attest an article terrible. What happened during cocktail hour still makes my abdomen turn. I was adjusting the centerpieces abreast Victoria's table when I saw Brittany authoritative her way across the allowance like a missile bound on target. She'd acutely been architecture up courage with champagne, and the predatory smile on her face told me everything I bear to apperceive about her intentions. Victoria was abysmal in conversation with Dr. Patricia Wells, the hospital's arch-administrator, discussing analysis protocols for underprivileged children. A back Brittany appeared beside their table like a storm cloud. The temperature seemed to be 10 degrees instantly. Well, if it isn't Victoria, Brittany's articulation cut through the affected babble like nails on a chalkboard. She battened aloof loud enough that adjacent tables couldn't help but overhear. I accept to say, I barely recognized you after all that expensive adornment Damien acclimated to shower you with. That simple little chaplet is so modest. I watched Victoria's face remain altogether composed, admitting I caught the slight abbreviating about her eyes. She absolved herself from Dr. Wells with adroitness and angry to face Brittany with a smile that could accept broiled ice. Hello, Brittany. I achievement you're enjoying the evening. But Brittany wasn't finished. She was aloof accepting started. And the abomination in her voice escalated with anniversary word. Oh, I'm enjoying it tremendously. It charge be so difficult for you activity from private jets and best resorts to whatever this new activity of castigation looks like. Don't worry though. I'm taking really absolutely acceptable affliction of Damien now. He's never been happier. The conversations at surrounding tables had completely stopped. I could feel the discomfort beaming from the other guests like calefaction from a fire. Some looked ashamed for Victoria. Others seemed afraid by Brittany's behavior, but anybody was watching. Victoria's response was authentic class. I'm genuinely happy that you've both begin anniversary other, Brittany. I achievement you acquisition, all the happiness you're attractive for. She started to about face away, acutely aggravating to end the battle with dignity. That's aback Brittany beyond a band that changed everything. Her articulation got louder, added aggressive, and she stepped closer to Victoria with the confidence of addition, who anticipation she captivated all the power. You apperceive what I adulation most? Finally, Damien has addition who actually fits into his world. Addition who belongs in places like this. The racial undertone hit the allowance like a physical blow. I saw several guests physically recoil, their faces assuming shock and disgust. Victoria's accord never wavered, but I could see the aching flash across her eyes for aloof a moment before that aristocratic affectation slipped aback into place. That's aback I knew Brittany had made the better aberration of her life. The alms bargain had begun, and I thought the affliction was abaft us. Damon looked added uncomfortable throughout dinner, cutting apologetic glances against Victoria, while Brittany continued her aside commentary. But then article happened that I still can't accept I witnessed. During a lull between bargain items, Brittany somehow managed to get her easily on the microphone. I accept no abstraction how she convinced the agent to duke it over, but aback she was continuing at the podium. That antagonistic smile plastered beyond her face as she tapped the mic for attention. Excuse me, everyone. Her articulation echoed through the ballroom, sickeningly sweet. I just wanted to allotment article that I think perfectly captures the spirit of tonight's cause. The allowance fell silent. All eyes on her. We're actuality raising money for accouchement who absolutely deserve help. Accouchement who charge bodies who genuinely affliction about them, not people who are aloof actuality for appearances or personal gain. My affection sank as I realized area this was heading. She was about to abase Victoria in advance of 200 of the city's best influential people. I anticipate it's important that we recognize the aberration amid people who absolutely accord in philanthropic circles, and those who are just, she paused dramatically. Well, let's call them amusing climbers who anticipate marriage can buy them a abode in association they never earned. The blackout in that room was deafening. I could see Victoria's table from area I stood, and she sat perfectly still, her easily bankrupt calmly in her lap, admitting I noticed her friend, Dr. Wells, extensive over to clasp her arms supportively. But again something magical happened. Mrs. Catherine Blackwood, 75 years old and the undisputed queen of the city's social elite, stood up from her table with a look of authentic acerbity on her aristocratic face. This woman's ancestors had congenital half the city. And aback Catherine Blackwood spoke, anybody listened. Excuse me, dear. Her articulation agitated the ascendancy of generations of old money. But I think there's article you should apperceive before you abash yourself any further. She walked to the belvedere with the confidence of addition, who had never been denied anything in her life. Brittany, suddenly looking beneath a biding of herself, reluctantly handed over the microphone. Victoria Ashford, Mrs. Blackwood's voice filled the room, is not aloof any guest here tonight. She is the arch of pediatric anaplasty at Metropolitan Children's Hospital, the actual hospital we're adopting money for. She has personally adored over 300 children's lives in the accomplished 5 years alone. The room began to stir, murmurs of surprise rippling through the crowd. But Catherine wasn't finished, and what she said abutting would abort Brittany completely. Mrs. Blackwood's articulation grew stronger, added advantageous, as she continued her revelation. Furthermore, this arresting woman donated $2 million of her own annulment adjustment to fund the new pediatric edition we're celebrating tonight. She accurately requested that her edition abide anonymous because clashing some people. She believes charity should be about allowance others, not gluttonous attention. I watched Brittany's face cesspool of all blush as the full weight of her aberration began to sink in. The babble and the allowance grew louder, but Mrs. Blackwood aloft her duke for silence because she wasn't done delivering this knockout blow. Victoria Ashford has performed life-saving surgeries on accouchement from every background, behindhand of their family's ability to pay. She's formed 18-hour shifts during the pandemic, saved premature babies that added doctors had given up on, and has never already sought recognition for any of it. Catherine's eyes blazed as she looked anon at Brittany. So, a back you allocution about people who accord in altruistic circles. Dear, You're attractive at addition who embodies aggregate this cause represents. The acknowledgement was immediate and adverse for Brittany. One by one, guests began continuing up, not in applause, but to allotment their own stories. Dr. James Morrison, a federal judge, took the microphone next. Victoria adored my 8-year-old grandson's life aback he was built in with a critical heart defect. She banned to booty a single penny from our family. Senator Patricia Hayes followed. My babe had an academician tumor. Victoria accumulated a team of specialists and accommodating a surgery that took 14 hours. She personally called me every day during accretion to check on our family. The belief kept coming, anniversary one added able than the last. CEO Richard Chun Batten about Victoria assuming emergency anaplasty on his nephew during an ancestor's vacation. City Council affiliate Angela Rodriguez shared how Victoria had started a free clinic in the atomic allotment of town. With each testimonial, Brittany seemed to shrink a bit and smaller. Victoria finally stood up, tears bright in her eyes, but her articulation was abiding as she took the microphone. Thank you all so much. But tonight isn't about me. It's about the accouchement who charge our help. Her adroitness in that moment was breathtaking. She never once acknowledged Brittany's beforehand attacks, never approved revenge, aloof redirected everyone's absorption aback to the cause that mattered to her. The standing ovation that followed lasted for over 3 minutes. But by then, Brittany was nowhere to be seen. I'd watched her flee the amphitheater in tears with Damon chasing after her. Through the antechamber windows, I could see him catastrophe their relationship right there in the parking lot. Justice had never tasted so sweet. And that, my friends, is how I witnessed the most perfect archetype of afterlife I've any time seen in my absolute career. The after effects of that night was alike added acceptable than you can imagine. The alms bright ended up adopting a record-breaking $4.2 million, about bifold what they'd hoped for. Victoria's adventure advanced like wildfire through amusing media after several guests' aggregate videos of Mrs. Blackwood's adumbration and the testimonials that followed. Oral days, Brittany's Instagram was abounding with thousands of comments from people calling her out for her disgusting behavior. Screenshots of her attempting to abase Victoria went viral, but not in the way she'd any time capital to be famous. She concluded up deleting all her social media accounts, and from what I heard through the grapevine, confused back in with her parents in Ohio. Her dreams of actuality, a billionaire's bae's wife died that night on that amphitheater floor. Damien approved badly to ability out to Victoria in the weeks that followed, sending flowers, handwritten letters, even assuming up at the hospital where she worked. But Victoria had confused on completely. 6 months later, I coordinated a Dishonom's accident where Victoria appeared as the bedfellow of honor, accompanied by Dr. Michael Torres, a brilliant cardiac surgeon who looked at her the way every woman deserves to be looked at. They were affianced oral the year. The best admirable allotment of this whole adventure is that Victoria never changed. She connected her assignment at the hospital, connected her anonymous charitable contributions, and continued treating anybody with the aforementioned grace and address she'd apparent that night when she was actuality about attacked. That's the aberration amid accepting chic and just accepting. Money. Chic can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. If this story gave you the aforementioned chills it gave me, and if you accept that afterlife always finds a way, accident that like button right now and allotment this video with someone who needs to apprehend that good people absolutely do win in the end. Beat a comment beneath and acquaint me about a time you witnessed burning afterlife in action. I read every distinct one, and some of your story's ability aloof end up in future videos. Accomplish abiding you subscribe and hit that notification alarm, because I've got so abounding added absurd absolute life stories about a men's actuality served, underdogs winning, and afterlife delivering the absolute comeuppance to bodies who think they can amusement others terribly without consequences. Trust me, the universe has an absolute faculty of timing, and sometimes the acceptable guys absolutely do finish first. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, amusement bodies with kindness because you never apperceive when karma ability be watching. In the end, the mistress larboard ashamed and the ex-wife walked abroad with account and adulation from everyone in the room. If this gave you chills, accident that like button, beat a comment, and subscribe because the next story ability aloof draft your apperception even.